Okay, well, welcome everybody to our webinar. As I was saying just a moment ago, sometimes we have things that come into our path that maybe want us to delay it or move away from it. And one of the things that we really need to move forward is self-confidence. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Bob mentioned that this is a very short chapter, and there is a lot in it. Some of it is repetitious, and some of it, Bob, I really think that he glossed over some really, really important points that he could have made an entire book about.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we'll kind of shoot through some of this stuff and regroup a little bit. Part of what Judy and I try to do is to preach from the pulpit of memory as much as we can, and find a way to pull whatever it is that we're reading or studying in terms of leadership into our synergy business, right, Judy?
that's so true. And um, this chapter is really an incorporation of what it takes to have self-confidence. At the end, he does have a self-confidence formula that was right in the beginning of the chapter that I felt belonged in the back of the chapter. So it's at the end of our slide presentation on what it takes to be self-confident. And I also think that there's a lot of things that destroy our self-confidence. And I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk about that or not, but that's also an important step in growth and moving forward in our lives, no matter what's going on. And, we may tell you some stories today about what's been going on in our lives and in our history, but it's very, very important, wouldn't you say, Bob?
Yeah, it is, Judy. Thanks. And when Judy first sent me this PowerPoint presentation, I took a look at the slides that she had chosen. She does all of the artwork, and she's so great with this. I really appreciate it. And when I first looked at this slide, this self-confidence formula, I saw this little guy sitting here. It brought to mind some things, and I wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you. First of all, this morning, with respect to self-confidence, I've always been pretty confident, in my life, and years ago, I kind of had an eye-opening experience from a friend of mine. I thought I was confident, but I have a friend who was the county attorney in Latah County here in North Idaho, and his name was Craig. And Craig and I were talking one day, and Craig was probably the most self-confident individual I've ever met in my whole life. And this is a guy who was playing a one-on-one basketball game at the University of Idaho against their top. He was the county attorney, but he was playing in this little pickup game during the halftime at a basketball game at the university, and the guy who was playing was the university's top point guard. And Craig said that he walked over to this guy, and they were standing there, and he said to the guy, just understand one thing. He says, my little 10-foot jumper counts exactly the same as your slam dunk. That's a confident thing to say, as the whole place is full of people. Well, this same guy, Craig, we were talking one day, and he was telling me that he had just been in a deposition, and he said Craig, my friend Craig, was sitting. He said, I looked at myself, and he said, I was wearing an old suit that had actually belonged to my grandpa. He said it was the only suit I had that was clean enough to wear to this thing. And he said, my briefcase was an old beat up briefcase that had belonged to my grandpa, and all my notes were in it. He said, and I looked across, and there were 5 attorneys sitting across from me that I had to face and deal with. And he said, the first thought that came to my mind was, well, 5-on-1, yeah, I can do this. this is just about right. And he meant that. I mean, he's looking at his old suit and his old briefcase, and he looks at these 5 high-end attorneys, and he's like, this is a level playing field. Now that's self-confidence like I'd never seen before. And I appreciate it. My father-in-law used to say, if 2 guys can do it, I can do it. You know, it's just that level of confidence that really, really moves individuals, and sometimes specifically individuals, moves them forward in life, and it makes it's a big deal. And so this webinar that we're going to be talking about today, it's all about, you know, positive thought processes, you know, abundance mindset, power of positive thinking, affirmations, persistence, organizational skills, all of those kinds of things. So Judy, as we move along, that's really was my first takeaway from this chapter.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And that's an amazing story about your friend. And you know, I have seen so many instances like that. I remember meeting a woman at a business outdoor fair, and she was dirty, she had shorts on, she was overweight, she had 4 kids in tow. And at that time, I was selling skincare, and I immediately looked at her, and I must admit, I judged that, oh, she probably can't afford my product. She probably doesn't have time to take care of herself. And as we spoke and had a wonderful conversation, I learned that she was a brain surgeon. In fact, she was the top brain surgeon in the local hospital. And her confidence was just so apparent as we stood there and spoke about life and people and, you know, just things in general, that you know, it doesn't really matter what we look like on the outside. It's what we are on the inside that helps us with our self-confidence.
Yeah, no, it's just so true. And as we go through this chapter of Think and Grow Rich, kind of be mindful a little bit that terminology has changed, you know, since the 30s when this was written. Well, one of the terms that Napoleon Hill uses is autosuggestion. That's a term I'd never even heard of before. Autosuggestion, really what it means is self-suggestion, the things that we're talking to ourselves about. So Judy, who is this little guy here?
Isn't this cute? You know, I don't know who this is. It's just something that I found as I was going through pictures, but I just thought it just gave such a good picture of, you know, sometimes the clothing doesn't fit how we feel inside. And that is so evident by this little boy. I mean, you can see the smile on his face and just the self-confidence that he has, that he is Superman.
Well, he's going to be jumping off the garage roof here in a minute, I'm sure of it.
And really, it's you know, that our thought has the control. It's not it's not the actions that we always do. It's the thoughts that create those actions. And really, you know, there's a tendency for the belief right now that thoughts are things. And when we think of something, we alone have the ability to make that thought real. And if you just think of all the changes in technology, since Napoleon Hill wrote this book, the new thoughts that have come into existence, and things that people just had a glimmer of an idea, a possibility that something could happen, that something better and bigger and easier for our lives, it would become in existence. And those thoughts really became a physical equivalent. They became truth. And many of those things we now even take for granted, like cell phones. In Napoleon Hill's time, they didn't have cell phones. But
Oh, gracious. Yeah.
yeah, someone thought of that idea, and now it's just something that, I mean, I see 3-year-olds with cell phones.
Yeah. Go figure, right? I took a computer class when I was a junior in high school, and I can't even remember the language back there, Fortran or COBOL or so. I can't even remember. You know, and a computer, our cell phones now have more capacity than a whole room full of computers did back then. So it's people having those kinds of bigger ideas and bigger thoughts really that move the world forward. And I think where we're going to today with this is that for us to understand, to remember and to understand that the dominating thoughts that we have, the thoughts that we permit to remain in our conscious thinking, whether they're positive or negative, but those are the thoughts that reach our subconscious mind and really influence us, you know, whether it's in a negative or a positive way. It's those thoughts that we just allow to dominate our subconscious mind. And it moves in a really negative way as well. You know, you look at people who are struggling with anxiety and depression and self-worth, all those kinds of things. Where are their dominating thoughts? Going down, dark. And we see that every single day. I mean, there's whole industries created to help people pull themselves out of those kinds of downward spiraling experiences. But what Napoleon Hill is trying to teach us in this particular chapter in this book is how important it is that those dominating thoughts are the thoughts that lead us onward and upward. And so that's what we want to talk about. There's got to be, if you will, an emotional connection to the things that we're thinking about in order for them to have an impact. Just thinking about something is fine. But when you add that measure of an emotional connection, you know, to that thought process, it changes everything. It's like, man, it's just like getting ready for a football game or any kind of a boxing match or anything else. That those athletes have to psych themselves out, get themselves ready. I had to have surgery on my foot one time, and I did it without anesthesiology or anesthesia. I just had locals into the foot because I was trying to save some money. This was years ago. But I'll tell you what, when I went in for that surgery and that surgeon looked up at me and goes, "Are you ready for this? I'm going to have to put 6 shots into your cold, sore foot." And I'm like, "I'm ready." He probably could have cut my foot off at that point. I wouldn't have even known. I would have been all right with it. I mean, I was so psyched out and ready for the pain I was going to feel in that foot. I was just prepared for it. And that's what we're talking about here. You get that emotion connection to your thought process, and you can do just about anything. Right, Judy?
That's so true. And the opposite is true too. I think it's called in the book mental suicide.
Yeah.
So you can also go to the other direction and have fear and doubt and disbelief really come into the forefront of your mind, and it's going to do just the opposite, and it's going to be a negative experience. And we have the power. I think that is the biggest lesson in this book, is that we have the power to change our thoughts and to make them go from negative to positive. It's not always easy, but it is so highly possible. And I took this this poem. I don't know, is he the author of this poem, Bob? Do you know?
I don't know. I think the guy plagiarizes a lot of stuff.
That's why I was asking. I didn't want to give him credit if it wasn't, but I just thought it was worth putting up, and you know, take a screenshot of this. So when you are feeling down and that things are going wrong and nothing will turn out right, to post this poem somewhere so that you can have some of those positive thoughts come back into your head. Do you want to read a little bit of it, Bob?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I was just thinking about that. I saw this thought in a little store at Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico one time. That said, if you see a man on top of a mountain, you can bet he didn't fall there. And I think about that sometimes, and I did when I read this. But if you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think you can't, it's almost certain that you won't. And again, I mean, these we all understand this, but I think it's really important from time to time that we have these thought processes mirrored back to us, right, Judy? We need to look at it, think about it, and then move forward. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. That's that guy on the mountaintop. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can win a prize. Judy, why don't you read the balance of that?
Absolutely. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but soon or late, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, as we read this, and as I've read this chapter, I come back to things like the power of positive thinking and all other, Stephen Covey's comments, and just on and on and on. There's so many good things for us to look at and to think about, but it all comes back to how do we think? What's in our mind? And I'm guilty of, taking the low road sometimes. But Bonnie said last Sunday, Bonnie said to me, Bob, you take the high road and I'm taking the psychopath. I about died laughing. I've never heard that before in my life. You take the high road, I'm taking the psychopath, which I think she has, to be honest with you. But anyway, it's how you think, right? And what you allow to dominate your thought process that's going to make or break you during the course of any activity. So it's good information, lots of it, and a lot of different ways to look at how that thought process works.
Yeah, absolutely. And the picture of this mountain actually reminds me of my friend Werner Berger. I don't know if any of you have read about him. He just turned 85 yesterday, and he's an amazing man. I actually screened him several times for his circulation. And he, if you don't know Werner, he holds the Guinness Book of World Records for being the oldest person in the world to climb all 7 of the world's highest peaks.
Good grief.
And what an amazing man. And to look at him, he doesn't look like a mountain climber. He looks like just a regular guy. I mean, Bob, if you and he were in the room, I would think that you had the same past, the same life. I mean, he's just a regular guy. But he decided one day that he was going to do that. And he's invited me several times to go along with him. I have declined. But
and wisely so.
But he's he's just someone that made a decision that he was going to do it. And it took him 3 attempts to do Everest. It took about 5 years for him to finally get to the top. So this wasn't something that he decided to do and just went and did it. But he trained, he tried again, he failed, he tried again, and accomplished his goal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where does he live?
He and Heshi live out in California.
Yeah, amazing. And here's a picture of Mahatma Gandhi. What a guy, huh?
What a guy. And I was thinking about this book and Mahatma Gandhi. And when the book was written, Mahatma Gandhi was still alive. In fact, he lived for 10 years after the book was published. And for Napoleon Hill, this guy was a living legend. He was the man of his time. And he was such an amazing, amazing person, as a began his career as a lawyer, and he was able to free India from British rule. And the principles that he used were all peaceful. They were non-violent. And he was able to succeed and really change the course of the world.
Yeah, you stop and think about it. When I think about Gandhi, I always picture him walking, to the sea, to whatever it was he was making, salt, or I can't remember
Yes.
what the deal was. Yeah, and I thought about like the difference between a sheep herder and a shepherd. A sheep herder's out there and he's got his dogs and he's moving his flocks of sheep wherever, but a shepherd can just, it's like Jesus in the Bible, where the sheep just follow. They know the shepherd's voice and they follow him wherever he goes. And that's how it was with Gandhi. The people followed him because the principles that he taught were principles of peace. They made sense, they were correct, and people followed him. And you pick up that positive thinking, that process of, I understand what this man has said, I believe him, I incorporate those principles and thoughts into my own personal life. I will follow this man to the sea. And it's hugely significant. He's not driving people. He's not Adolf Hitler who, rules the world by force. He leads, and it's a beautiful, beautiful way, to govern a people.
Yes, and his faith was such a big part of his self-confidence and what he did in his life. A lot of it was based on his faith, and Napoleon Hill really talks about how the two go so hand in hand, right? You can't have faith and you can't have self-confidence without having developed some type of faith in something, no matter what that is.
That's true, and you stop to think about people like Gandhi or people like Mother Teresa. There isn't anything about their physical stature or anything else that would draw anyone to them. He's just a simple little Indian man. She's just a simple little nun. And yet the power of their influence across the world will last forever. And they're two of the most powerful people ever, but not because they run corporate America, but because of the values that they teach, the power of their principles.
So true. So true.
Yeah, look at this. Either I will find a way or I'll make one. I love it.
Yeah, and that really says it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it applies to so many things. I've been building a little cottage for my sister, and it seems like every day I'm looking at something and I'm thinking, I don't know quite what I'm going to do here. We'll Mary and my wife Bonnie and I will stand there looking, and they'll say, well, what are you going to do? And I'll just stand there staring at stuff for a while, and I'll figure it out. Well, give me a minute, give me a minute, I'll get it figured out. And you find a way, you make a way, but that's that power of positive thinking and having confidence in yourself, knowing that, well, I can do this. Somebody else did it, I can do it. I've just got to have a minute to think this through. Plus, there's YouTube. You guys use YouTube all you want, to help yourselves find a way. But
that is so true. That is so true. Had a problem with my thermostat a couple weeks ago, so I went to YouTube to figure out how to program it.
Yeah, go to YouTube. It's just absolutely amazing. But these steps, self-confidence steps are just extremely important. But they're things that we already understand, right? Persistent, continuous action towards attainment. You just keep moving forward, right? David Munoz has shared with us the affirmations that he reads in the mornings, and maybe not every single day, but for the most part, David sticks with those affirmations, which brings that positive influence in his life. I have a series of things that I do every morning. I mean, I'm at my desk early in the morning. And honestly, I've always taught that the first two disciplines of the day are make your bed and say your prayers. I do both of those things. I do that in the morning. I pray. I do, honestly. I've already prayed this morning. I do some reading that's important to me. Continuous, persistent, continuous action moving towards attainment. Or I want my day to go a certain way. I throw that positive into it. And then you have to create that clear mental picture of the person you want to become. This life, Judy, is all about becoming. That's my personal opinion. It's like, who am I becoming? And if you have that clear mental picture in your mind of the kind of man or woman that you want to become, kind of husband or wife you want to be, the father or the mother that you want to become, the business person you want to become, you better have that clear in your mind going forward. You pick things up along the way, absolutely. But you have to have that clear in your mind, or you're just kind of floating around there, It's like, well, you just have to have that clear mental picture, right? So, Judy, what about practicing self-confidence? What's that all about?
Well, so I think this is really important to keep it in your mind about all of your goals and your actions, and to practice self-confidence. There's so many techniques out there. So lately in one of my classes, I was actually taught the emotional freedom technique, which is a way to tap your body to create self-confidence. That's how I interpret it. It's supposed to be emotions, but that's really tied together. But if you start by accepting yourself as you are and loving yourself as you are, and knowing that you will be better every day, and with specific things, whether it's any type of emotion, whether it's I will be happy, I will be less jealous, whatever that emotion is, to remind yourself every day to do that. It's amazing what happens, because I've been practicing now for a couple months doing this, and throughout the day, because I've been tapping on several different points in my head, and my eyes and my lips and my throat, I have these messages come back to me saying, oh yes, I am getting better every day and it depends on what I'm doing today, every day at working out. And it might remind me, oh my gosh, I need to work out today to improve my body. And so that self-confidence that you may only do for 10 minutes, whenever time of the day, will help you throughout the day in reinvigorating yourself to that self-confident state.
A little side note to that too, Judy, is that, and this is something that I find myself having to deal with fairly a lot. As you grow a little bit older, you face more and more opportunities to grow, and there's always a measure of adversity in life. There just is. And sometimes I'll be going along and I'll start thinking about something. It's probably an important thing to think about, but it's a downer. And if I start having those doubts or negative things, or something that's occurred in my life that's hurt my heart or whatever, I literally tell myself almost out loud, don't think about that. Don't think about that. It bears no good fruit. You don't need to think about that. And sometimes I have to say that to myself. Stop thinking about that, Bob. What good does it do to ponder or spend 1 minute worrying about something that you can't fix? So, the self-confidence side is also kicking the negative side out so you can find that self-confidence. I think that's fair to say.
That's so true. That's so true. And number 4, write the definite chief aim in life. I love the way he says this, but we kind of say, know your why.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Know your why.
Know your why. And it's so important to to spend some time at that, because if you have a faith and you believe that your life has a purpose, then it's up to us to discover what that purpose is. So know your why.
Yeah, absolutely. And this fifth, believe in self and others with love, it seems self-evident, but sometimes it's not so much. And but it is key. You have to have confidence in yourself, and sometimes that confidence comes just by life experience. But
Yes.
yeah, love your neighbor as yourself, and
That's exactly what was in my mind. And that little sentence really came home when I always thought of it as love your neighbor, right? But that last part is so important, because we have to love ourselves. We can't love others unless we love ourselves.
no, it's true. Yeah, it's true. It becomes just a reflection of who you are, I think. And it's really important. So those are just great little steps, help us with our self-confidence. So kind of in a nutshell, what we've been talking about today is just the fact that we do need self-confidence. We need to work on that. We need to have positive thought processes, not just to talk about them, but to really incorporate a good, positive, forward-moving thoughts into our self-conscious with enough emotion so that it actually makes a difference at the end of the day. Because you can read things that are really good and just gloss over them, but when you add a little bit of emotion to that, it changes the playing field completely. So anyway, that's my thought.
And I would challenge everyone that is on this live recording or listening it to later to actually go through these 5 steps in the self-confidence formula. And Napoleon Hill says you should actually write them down, create an action plan, and sign it. Physically sign the document. And that one little step is going to really glue it in and help you improve your self-confidence in that one tiny way.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how the first time I read Og Mandino's Greatest Salesman in the World, and he talks in that particular book, he talks about the need to, read through those scrolls X amount of times for so many days. And I remember the powerful, excuse me,
Bless you.
the powerful influence that book had. I didn't sit down and sign off on it, although that would have been a good thing to have done, but it changed my life. Reading Og Mandino did all those years ago, and that was clear back in the 70s, early 70s, in fact, maybe 71. And but it had a powerful effect. So we want to add things into our conscious thinking. We want to read things that are positive and upbeat, that help us to move forward. There's so many different ways to do that. But it's all good, and we need to hear these things from time to time. So Judy, thank you so much for sharing this with all of us today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I think that's all I got to share.
And I guess that's a wrap.
Did I tell you what Bonnie told me the other day? She said the most adult sentence ever spoken is, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that."
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's an adult.
And the most powerful 2 letters are N and O.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I loved it anyway.
So thank you, Bob. Are there any questions or comments before we say goodbye today?
I think we just knocked them dead, Judy.
I guess so. So thank you again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget Monday morning. Bob has some awesome things planned, right, Bob?
Yeah, it'll be great. We've got, not this week, but we've got Josh McKell lined up to join our call too. I can't remember what day that was. Doesn't matter. I guess it's moving into, not clear until towards the end of August, but I'm looking forward to hearing from Josh. I talked with Jake Rothfels earlier, and he's doing almost everything he does now is with Nature Sunshine, not with Synergy. I didn't know that until just this week, but it's all good. Everybody's doing well, so we'll just keep moving forward.
Awesome.
Dane is down in St. George today in a golf tournament. He didn't have to do his, or he isn't doing his service work today, apparently. So anyway, it's all good. He's been back in Missouri, and he got kind of sick. He got heat exhaustion. I don't know. Did you guys know that?
I had heard. Yeah, that's
Anyway,
tough.
he's doing better now.
Awesome.
Okay, guys, thanks so much.
Thanks, Judy and Bob.
Yeah, have a
Yeah,
good
you
week.
bet, man. Thank you for all
Thanks,
you
Judy,
do.
Bob.
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
guys. Thank you all. God bless y'all. We'll see y'all before you know it.